not really a game-changing budget. From a startup point of view, I don't see it as being very startup friendly. There are some tax reforms, there is a tax holiday, but I don't really see how that's going to make a strong impact because most startups are actually not profitable in the first few years. Also, service tax is not addressed. There is no exciting announcement with regard to how raising capital is going to become easier. From MobiKwik or my payment startup point of view, I don't see anything special announced in terms of banking reforms for digital payments. From a woman's point of view, yes, it's great that funds have been earmarked for women entrepreneurs. I hope that those funds will actually become accessible to the women who need them to get started as a means of a platform for them to start up. So I was expecting a lot more given Modi ji's initiative of Startup India, Stand Up India from this budget. And from all of those angles, I don't really see this as being a super exciting budget.
First great thing that the government has done is that it has clearly defined what a startup is in terms of the turnover of the startup, the number of years, and correspondingly the benefits that it is offering. Who can actually leverage those benefits? Why that is important is because some of these things have always, believe it or not, existed in the gray area, right? So I think clearly defining that this is what we define as a startup, and this is for how long you can actually leverage the benefits of the 100% tax-free period is overall good. Secondly, I think as an early stage startup, in many cases you're not even making any profits, or you're growing towards making profits. But if you even start to make profits early in the day, let's say before the 3 or the 5 year period as stipulated by the government, it's important to plow back those profits as much as you can make into the company so that you can go to the next level. So I think therein these tax benefits are pretty helpful. And I think just the message that it sends across, right, to the overall ecosystem, which is one to say, hey, we're with you, we're partnering with you, we're supporting you, go out there and start your company. I think that's a very positive message, and I think that's probably the most important.
So interesting budget, but I think the couple of areas that I am a tad disappointed around, one is really about private investing. I think the government has done the right thing by reducing capital gains from 3 years to 2 years, but ideally it should be 1 year. And the reason is because India is probably one of the few countries where, while we are making noise about 500 crores for SC or ST entrepreneurship or 10,000 crore startup fund, I think the real value will come when we make it very easy for private individuals to invest as well as to exit their investments, which is a big sore point. And I think the government had the opportunity to address and clarify these issues very clearly, which I think we did not do. So we need to fuel entrepreneurship and investment through making entry and exit very, very clear. And 2, we need specific plans for job creation and growth. So that's sort of my takeaway.
Instead of a handout in the form of tax exemption on profits for 3 years for startups, it would have been better if there was an abolition of angel tax. I believe that if you make profits, there's no harm in paying tax, and I also feel that almost no startups will be eligible for the conditions laid for this tax exemption. Angel tax is a draconian tax measure under Section 56 of the Income Tax Act that makes you liable to pay tax even though you may have no revenue, leave alone profit. The second thing that I wish that the budget had discussed was about the parity between long-term capital gain of public and private equity. Sure, they have brought down the period for long-term capital gain eligibility from 3 years to 2 years, but the rate of long-term capital gains tax is much higher in the case of private equity, that is equity of startups, as opposed to public stock. And finally, I wish that the point of incidence of taxation on stock options or employee stock benefits would be when the employees actually make a profit on it, not just when they...
What has accomplished is to put startups front and center in terms of policy making. So startups are clearly on the minds of the finance minister, the prime minister. That's good. In terms of specifics that have been included in the budget, the fact that there is tax exemption, although that's somewhat been nullified by the MLD that has been put in. But some of the big game-changing demands have yet to be met, such as 100% FDI in marketplace.
Very promising budget. For the first time, government is talking about startup ecosystem and has defined the way the companies to be made, benefit from the tax holidays, and hopefully within a couple of days we would have the exit policy as well. The idea of government of digital rural is fantastic. It opens a huge opportunity. A company like ours, indiareads.com, which supplies books to the rural area and other parts of the country, will be immensely benefited. And not only that, Skilling India is a brilliant initiative by the government, and the books and Skilling India go together, and we are looking very, very positive on this.
This budget is a very welcome first step from the Government of India towards boosting the startup ecosystem in India. Tax exemptions, breaks on capital gain taxes as well, I believe is a very necessary step towards making people start more businesses, making people invest into more startups. So I'm very, very hopeful about these steps. Plus, the startup focus that the Government of India has shown, I believe, would provide the necessary positivity in the environment. From the angle of a travel business, to be precise, they are opening up or revamping 160 domestic airports now, which would provide a necessary boost towards people traveling more inside India, Indians traveling more inside India. So I'm very, very hopeful about these steps.